Alright, so this time we are looking at none other than the HiFiMAN DEVA. Wow, that box is dustier in camera than it looks in person. For those of you that are out of the loop, let me go ahead and update you. So as you can see here, it is a planar magnetic headphone, obviously, that uses planar magnetic technology with a Bluetooth/USB dongle. So exactly the way it sounds. These are the HiFiMAN DEVA's headphones, and well, it's a newer design for HiFiMAN. I don't think they've ever made this type of design before. Like, yes, it's similar, you know, with the yokes and the headband, that they don't really have a suspension strap unless you're talking about the newer, like Sundaras and Nandas and Aryas. But generally speaking, you know, this is kind of a bit of a throwback to their older models. So anyway, let's begin with the contents here. It comes with the headphones themselves, of course. It also comes with this 3.5 millimeter tip ring sleeve cable to a tip ring sleeve single-ended cable, as you can see right there. It comes with a 1/4 inch adapter that is also tip ring sleeve, so that you can go ahead and use this with an actual amplifier, single-ended. It comes with a USB-A to USB-C adapter, which I know it sounds kind of weird, but it actually goes connected to the Blue Mini BT Bluetooth adapter. The Blue Mini Bluetooth adapter, which goes connected to the HiFiMAN DEVAs. So obviously, you know, this is wireless. It has a battery inside. And how do you charge it? It charges with USB Type-C, as you can see right there. Now then, let's go ahead and start with the build quality here. Build quality on these it's actually pretty good. It actually is pretty good. As you can see here, the overall color scheme of these is a silver and beige color that can only be matched with a knockoff Louis Vuitton handbag made in Taiwan. The headband is made of a thick material that feels like a cheap kitchen stool cushion. There's not a lot of padding either up top. Not that it's terrible, but it definitely doesn't feel premium per se. Now, the yokes that connect the headband to the cups are made of metal, and they actually feel quite sturdy, if you ask me. This is definitely one of the fortes in the build quality as far as that is concerned. The yokes that connect the headband to the cups are made of metal. Oh, I already said that. Now, the cups themselves, they may be the color of metal, but they are made of plastic. Right there. So are the parts of the headband with the logo, such as this right here, the HiFiMAN logo, and the DEVA logo. The pads themselves are a hybrid type, as you can see here, consisting of that pleather outside with a kind of swim trunks mesh material on the side that makes direct contact with your head. Both cables that are included with these headphones are honestly very stiff and uncomfortable to use. As you can see here, this one really... It really just maintains its shape. Look at this thing. It's very not good at all. And I'd strongly recommend replacing it with something if you plan on getting the DEVAs at all. Funny thing is, the USB cable itself is actually much more comfortable and much more flexible, lighter than the 3.5 millimeter cable itself. So I thought that was pretty interesting. It's like, wow. That's great, you know, now I can charge them more comfortably than I can use them. Now, the Blue Mini itself is made entirely out of plastic, which may have partially been due to reducing the weight on one side and limiting the lopsided feeling of wearing the headphones with the Blue Mini attached. So as you can see here, you plug these in like that, and bam, this is what the headphone looks like with the Blue Mini attached. Not that it looks terrible, but like it's just really mismatchy with the color scheme, and the one-sidedness, the asymmetricality of this is just really not quite my cup of tea, and not quite the cup of tea of many other people either. An additional note, my hair got caught multiple times between the yoke and the screw that holds the yoke and cup together. So right here, it got caught in right inside that multiple times. Now we jump into the comfort department. No. If we forget about the cables or Bluetooth, the headphones themselves are relatively lightweight considering the fact that they're planars. For desktop use, their clamp force is quite comfy without being far too loose but definitely not tight. I can see it forming a hotspot at the top of my head after about 1 to 2 hours of using these. For the most part, they're not terrible. However, once you introduce the cable, that entirely changes. The cables included are extremely stiff and rigid, like reducing whatever comfort advantage the headphones had down to zero. Every time I move my head, I can feel the weight of the cable shifting from side to side and constantly rubbing up against my shirt. It is extremely annoying. And no, I have to emphasize that. Extremely annoying. Now, as you choose to opt for 5, 6, 7, 8, as you choose to opt for the Blue Mini, things change quite a bit. While they aren't the most comfortable headphone, they are acceptable for that 1 to 2 hour span for sure. Now let's jump into the tech section. So this section is actually relevant because of the Bluetooth aspect of the headphone. Now I'm not going to waste your time reading specs out loud from a booklet, wasting 5 minutes of yours and my time. So instead, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and show you pages 17 and 18. You can go ahead and pause the video there. That is 17 and 18. These are the instructions, the operation guide. I think there's some on the following page as well. No, that's about it. So you can go ahead and pause the video there and go ahead and take a look at that for yourself without wasting any additional time there. Look, is the battery life true to their word? Is it really 7 to 10 hours? I couldn't tell you, honestly. I couldn't keep listening to these for 7 to 10 minutes. Bit of a spoiler there. Let alone 7 to 10 hours. Now let's jump into the range. I performed an indoor test, which is just, leaving my phone, which was the Bluetooth device that was the source of the music, on my bed, in my room, and then walking all around the house, room to room, and testing to see if there was some sort of disconnect or glitching or some sort of hiccup in the audio. And throughout that entire time, I heard a very, very, very quick drop at the farthest point of the house in between multiple walls and a shower. And keep in mind, I do live in what I would consider to be a mid-sized one-story American household. So, this is the most average scenario of all time there. Now, as we performed the outdoor test, as I left my phone on the floor and began walking away from it, I encountered the limit at 13 steps. Then, I turned 180 degrees and the signal strength recovered. So, I continued walking away from it, but in reverse. By using this method, I reached a maximum of 31 steps before the signal began dying off on me again. So take that as you will. As far as latency is concerned on these, it's not that great, honestly. It's not terrible, absolutely deplorable, but it's not great either. At first, it seemed like it was absolutely terrible. However, it appears that my concerns were a bit exaggerated. After watching the video for about a minute, the lag was still present, but definitely tolerable, especially if you're trying not to focus on the speaker's lips. Now we jump into the sound department. Just a quick note, for the sound portion, I shall be performing my testing utilizing the single-ended cable into my AAA 789 amplifier. After all portions of the sound testing are finished, I shall describe the difference between single-ended, Bluetooth, and USB, because yes, you can also use these with USB playback, which is another pretty cool feature if I'm being honest. Now let's start off with the bass here. It has that planar bass type of sound. It's plentiful. It is plentiful with plenty good extension. However, it is not forward at all. Because of that good bass extension, the sub bass has plenty of kick and presence to it. However, the mid bass sounds quite weak and lacks any sort of bite. It isn't that I can't hear anything, it's just that it's quite honestly really dead. It's just dead. Bass guitars make noise, but they do not thrive. You know your mid bass has an issue if I, of all people, am telling you that it lacks forwardness. You know you have weak mid bass when I, of all people, am telling you that it lacks mid bass. Let's just leave it at that. Let's jump into a couple of examples here. Zealots of Stockholm by Childish Gambino. At the minute 26 mark, I really couldn't complain with what I heard. The note was forward enough and detailed enough to where I cannot complain, but there is something about the overall timbre of the note that just felt a little cold and mechanical. At the 306 minute mark, the bass value remains heard throughout most of the dip that it experiences, but it remains somewhat recessed throughout the entire duration. Now another example, Dream On, the Postmodern Jukebox cover. There's good news and bad news to report on this one. The bad. The string bass, although it's clear and distinguishable, almost forms the shape of like a pancake in the listener's mind. It kind of just flops on top of everything. Now the good is that despite that fact, it was very, and I mean very, well separated from the rest of the instruments. Not a single instrument felt overwhelmed by the presence of the string bass. Not one bit. It was honestly pretty surprising to hear. Now let's jump into the mids here. Female vocals are very clear and forward, but at the cost of enjoyability. I actually feel like they are way too forward to be enjoyable, much less correct. Definitely honky. If I had to give it a single adjective to describe it, it would definitely be honky. Male vocals are very clear and forward as well. In the case of Titanium, the Postmodern Jukebox cover, this is mostly a benefit due to the fact that this track is not quite as forward as Dream On. Now the Deva don't push male vocals as forward as they do female, which overall is kind of a good thing because they managed to retain that extra separation and detail with vocals without boosting the sound as much. The cello in the solo of Dream On was very separated from the other instruments and had some pros and cons to offer. And by that I mean, the pizzicato had some excellent detail, like very plucky, amazing. While the vibrato, it really lacked. Like I really couldn't hear any vibrato in some of the notes at all. Now as far as the treble's concerned, to test out the treble, I went ahead and fired up Bangarang first, and I immediately paused it after about 15 seconds. I had all I needed. Now, the entire treble is just overhyped. It's just overhyped. Very peaky and sibilant. Like so much so that I struggle to hear the track over the sibilants created from the S sounds. It's that bad. Now you've heard the term airy, right? Okay, how about hurricane-y? Okay? Yeah, these things have air. They have so much air that I had to put on a jacket in the middle of the summer. It was astounding. Now what's worse is that HiFiMAN headphones tend to possess a bit of a silvery sound, which is very much their signature. But combine that with the Hurricane Deva over here and you have a torrential treble response. Ooh. The treble is so violent that it's rated R.
I'm not paying you to do stand-up, Mr. Squidward!
The worst part of all is that the flawed timbre bleeds into the mids and even the lows, giving the entire headphone an overall silvery and metallic sound. Actually kind of similar to the Focal Clear, but in this case, not in a professional, oh, it's a cute little flaw of the headphone. No. This thing is just... yeah. Now, the soundstage on these. The soundstage is really something else. The width is on the medium side of things. However, it does something strange with sounds where it sort of pushes them outward, creating the illusion of a wider soundstage, if that makes any sense. A similar type of headphone that does this is Sennheiser's HD5XX line with their ear technology. The result of which is that it creates a more bubble-like soundstage rather than like an open space for sounds to exist on. Now the imaging, honestly, it's not that impressive. Not that they're bad at it, they're very decent, but their capabilities never quite impressed me at all. Also, because of its rounded shape, many of the sounds image like they were behind me, and no, not in a good way. Like whenever something would approach you from one side, instead of approaching you, it would instead just avoid you and travel right behind you and then get back in line. Now for the notes and observations right before the conclusion, when swapping over to Bluetooth by using the Blue Mini, I was actually surprised. There was no degradation of sound whatsoever, or if there was anything, there was so little that you wouldn't even care, if we're being honest. Tiny difference with the cello solo. The vibrato did have more detail, but the separation between the cello and the female singer grew ever so slightly worse. Just a bit. Now, as far as the overall timbre of the headphone is concerned, it remained as flawed as ever. When attaching the USB cable to the Blue Mini to use it as a wired headphone, or, to just charge up the Blue Mini, It's very simple. It's very, very simple to do so. And you read the instructions, but you plug this in, then you plug the USB Type-C side. And if you want to go ahead and use that on your computer as a headphone with this being the DAC, then all you have to do is once it's connected, you just have to press and hold the power button right there for a couple of seconds. This will light up light blue, and then that's it. You'll know that it's on, and then you can just control the audio from your computer. The sound doesn't really change at all, which is well, depending on how you see it, but I guess I see it. It doesn't change for the worse, but it doesn't change for the better either. If anything at all, the headphone traits a slight bit of intensity for a more relaxed sound signature. Although this is a welcome improvement, nothing can save it from its fatal flaws, honestly. So let's jump into the conclusion here. I really hate the fact that I have to rain on its parade. I really do, because I think HiFiMan really did have an excellent idea when designing the headphone, and I think they're on the right track here. Now, I certainly doubt most people would take their open backs while on the go. And if you are one of those people, stop. Also, their less constricting clamp force makes it pretty easy to make these fall off and slide off of one's head. As for the Bluetooth aspect of this headphone, I can see this being useful for somebody that is probably working at an area that is not their usual desktop setup, or if they feel like the lack of wires help them focus on the topic at hand, in which case they might be the ideal headphone for the job. In theory. The USB playback feature is a welcome addition, especially to incoming audiophiles that do not have their own DAC amp setup quite yet, but still want to get the most out of their new headphone. Like, it definitely gets the job done in this regard. However, their very questionable timbre and unbearable highs make these a failed experiment in my eyes. Don't get me wrong, HiFiMan, this is definitely a step in the right direction. It really is. But maybe you'll hit the mark with the next headphone. One that can hopefully not sound like a glorified tin can. Excellent idea. Flawed execution. But, well, it is what it is. Back to the drawing board, HiFiMan, but you've got some good ideas. And I look forward to seeing what you have in the future. So, thank you very much for watching the video. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. If you have any questions, leave them down below. Don't forget to check out the Patreon. I'll have the link to this in the description below as well. And yeah, thanks for watching. Hope this helps.